technically a flex pick. I'm actually very surprised to see that as the first pick instead of Xin Zhao.
Myself as well.
Actually, yeah.
I mean, primarily based on the stats that you just threw up there. I mean, there's a reason why Spica has been so celebrated for TSM. Just as an individual, he's been such a big piece, a big component of their victories and their success. And as they don't pick up the Xin, Immortals is not going to waste any time grabbing a couple power picks of their own in Ryze and Xin Zhao.
There's no way that's a flex Ryze, is it? Because early picking a mid laner this fast usually is either A, you want to take it away from them, or B, you're keeping it as a flex. And Revenge does like playing like Camille and things that can like 1v1 top. And if that's Lee Sin top, he does not have a good time versus Ryze top.
So
it could be a flex.
If any team would do it, it was Immortals.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
I don't think they're going to.
I don't think they would either, but I think that would be good, honestly. Like, I don't want to play Lee Sin versus Ryze in the case that's Lee Sin top, which it could be.
They could always just swap, like they could always just lane swap for better matchups, which I also wouldn't put past IMT.
But then you gotta send your top laner mid, and they don't know how to play mid, let's be honest. There's no bushes there.
So usually the argument is the opposite. the mid laner doesn't know how to play the long lane.
I feel like mid laners are a lot more flexible when they have to go to different lanes.
Hi, let me stop you. Let me stop you there. Hi. Do you think mid laners can play any lane, or do you think you can play any lane?
Okay, you have seen plenty of mid laners roll swap. We have Perks literally roll swap the bot lane. You have a lot of who he swapped to support. A lot of mid laners to swap off a mid lane, not the other way around. I haven't seen many roll swap from whatever to mid.
I wouldn't be doing my job if I wasn't checking the ego every once in a while.
Oh, I'm just saying.
That's all it is.
I've done it as well, but it's not about me. It's about mid lane. We're talented people.
Bringing it back to the draft real quick, Hi. Since we did see the Orianna locked in, and while, yes, technically that Ryze could still be flexed to the top lane, if this were to be our mid lane matchup, how do we expect that one to play out?
My bet would be, if it is Ryze mid, Ryze Xin Zhao is a lot stronger than Orianna Lee Sin. Orianna has no actual thing to make Lee Sin hit his Q. Like the 2v2 at level 6, it still goes in the favor of IMT, because if you send all of your damage onto Ryze, that Xin Zhao will kill you. And you can't focus Xin Zhao because of his ultimate. So Ryze and Xin Zhao is one of the strongest 2v2 mids with the current bans that they have. So they should just keep, honestly. I wouldn't send Ryze top, assuming this is Lee Sin jungle. But Huni does like his Lee Sin.
I agree. Like, they're going to hold that flex as long as they can, but I don't think Immortals is going to make them show here. So I think Immortals is going to take their AD carry pick here on 4. And I really like the Ziggs ban here by TSM because I think that is one thing where you can just isolate the Ziggs versus the Varus and then have your support leave the whole time, which I think would favor SwordArt. So I want to see if Immortals can pick something that keeps SwordArt in lane. It's just going to be really hard against Varus. Like, what is the pick even against Varus when you need to...
Draven, something with some range?
Ashe could be good, actually.
Yeah, I actually think Ashe is stronger than people give her credit for. We were talking about that off camera before.
Yeah, about Ashe being a little strong in this.
I really love the Trundle ban coming through too, because that again is kind of forcing the Lee Sin into the jungle position, whereas they could have picked Trundle to counter the Xin Zhao.
Are they really going to do TK like that?
He's blinding, bro.
Yeah.
Did you see his team Tahm Kench last time, though? That guy was nuts, man.
He's a giant ball stats, right?
Yeah.
He is.
And, you know, when worse comes to worse, just pick the giant ball stats and add some stats to it. And send it down a lane.
That's such a weird pick, though. Why wouldn't you pick your AD carry there, right? Like, one, I don't think they should pick Ashe. I think that's too much CC. They build QSS.
Maybe they are sending the Ryze bot.
They're just saying that... I just think they're saying TK is a power pick. Like, so one other thing about TSM that I don't think that many people realize is TSM plays through top. Right? More so than any other lane. So if you put a brick up there, it makes it very difficult for them to execute that game plan. That's the only thing I can think of.
I don't think you play through a Tahm Kench top, though. Like, if you're to do Tahm Kench top, like, say, like, TSM plays through top, right? And they pick Tahm Kench. I don't care if they play through Tahm Kench.
Yeah.
You know? Like, you do you.
Well,
and I think the Gnar is super favorable for TSM here. Huni's really good and comfortable on Gnar.
I was going to say, for the Tahm Kench pick, I also think it's probably just that even if you're not playing around the Kench, he can kind of hold his own.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, he just sits there. Like, do you want to really dive a Tahm Kench? Like, no.
No. The answer is no to that. But yeah, I guess I look at these 4 or 5 picks and I do ask, like, why couldn't Immortals picks have been inverted? Why couldn't the Ezreal have come in? Was there really anything that was going to change whether or not you stick with the Ezreal? And then, hey, leave yourself open to maybe some wild counter pick in the top lane. But by the same token, if we do view TSM as a team that plays entirely through top and we don't see ourselves really contesting that, you just put your top laner on the least diveable, tankiest champion and say, survive, survive, survive.
The big thing here for me is that I don't feel like we forced TSM. Like, TSM got comfort across the board, right? So, like, when I'm looking at IMT strategy going into this, I want them to set TSM off kilter. This is a draft that TSM is completely comfortable across the board playing.
Right, and particularly that bot side too, because I think that would be the weakness if I were Immortals that I'd want to attack, and I feel like Lost ended up on Comfort with the Varus.
I definitely think it's a mistake not to pick AD carry fourth there, unless you're keeping the Ryze as a flex for bot.
Championship TSM and Immortals are facing elimination. This best of 5 will determine who fights Cloud9 to stay alive in the bracket and claim the last spot at the World Championship. TSM are 5-0 against Immortals on the year. Hoping to make that 8-0 after today.
We'll have to see, because there was a lot of talk in between the week about scrims and all these different results, and there's a lot of chatter that Immortals is actually looking really good, and I think that has swayed a lot of public opinion. No one is quite brave enough to predict against TSM, but there's still a lot of talk that, hey, this is not going to be like slaughter you might think it is.
Exactly. It's a lot of, hey, but I wouldn't be surprised if they upset them. But that's the key word. It would be an upset. And as far as the seeds go, this would be a massive upset. It is number 1 versus number 7 coming in here.
Well, some people do have belief in Immortals. We've got LaTigra standing by with their head coach, Giotto.
I should take Tamas, that's true.
Good, thank you so much. I am here with Giotto ahead of this matchup. You properly identified the threat that Dignitas had last time around. What do you think is the threat that TSM poses today?
I think that TSM is one of the teams that plays the best around top. So obviously we are looking at Huni and also Spica. When it comes to early game, later on we believe that PowerOfEvil is a really big threat when it comes to team fights, especially on his mages. But there are so many that obviously we can't really avoid him playing mages, right?
And a different level of team when you compare Dignitas to TSM today. What were you saying to your players to get them ready for this matchup?
I think the main thing for our players this series is just enjoy the experience. We always were honest that our goal this year is to build kind of a core. And enjoying this best of 5s, the fact that we are lucky enough to have a second best of 5 to gain that experience is very important for our long-term project. So the main thing for us, winning or losing, is that we'll feel comfortable with the performance that we put in, and if we do that, then we'll be happy no matter the result.
Well, it's always an enjoyable experience getting to hear from you. Back to the casters.
Thank you.
I'm going to be really interested to see how heavily TSM does actually focus on topside. You know, that was one of the big questions coming away from their series against TL. How heavily would they pivot from that red side strategy? Of course, they picked blue here today. And how heavily will they pivot from how often they were up there? You know, is there a read that this strat doesn't work? Or is there a read that this strategy does not work against Alphari or does not work against Team Liquid?
Yeah, and I think they indexed a little less heavily into it this time around, like you said already, just going blue side. They also saw the counter pick, but it was just the Gnar. It wasn't anything too aggressive, like potentially Jace or something. And so a little bit safer, but I still want to see especially how the supports interact with it, because you talk about playing around topside right now. It's a lot about roaming supports. In the regular season, the duo proximity for supports was between like 42 and 50% generally. Right now, SwordArt was at 20% in the series against Team Liquid. Destiny was at 37. Everyone is below the regular season, and that's why you can see that there's going to be so much focus probably around that top lane.
And even in the regular season, the LCS had the lowest dual procs of any region in the world. And then on this patch, on Playoffs patch, it's massively lower. You know, people are just already ramping up so heavily into this roam style.
And we're going to see if, you know, Ezreal is like the famed 1v2 champion. Obviously, SwordArt's going to be out of lane a fair bit. But yeah, Raes is you know, probably going to be left alone a fair bit with Destiny running around. Did want to make a point about Giotto as he was talking. The Portuguese coach told me on Twitter at the beginning of the split, he has made finals in his first year on every team he's ever been on. So we're going to see if he can keep that one up with Immortals here. He's got a couple matches to win to make that one go through, but be excited if he could do it.
I mean, it's a tall task, given, you know, it feels like compared to a lot of the other top teams in North America, they balled out on their budgets and who they were signing. This would be an incredible story if he was able to pull it off, especially with what resources they were given.
And to make it to finals, you have to win 3 best of 5s from here, right? You know, there's still, you'd have to win this, you'd have to beat C9, then you'd have to beat, you know, potentially the loser of TL 100. So, you know, either of these teams, long road to go to try to make it to finals. But of course, the focus here is on this series today, on trying to go one step at a time. This is, you know, do or die for these teams trying to make it towards Worlds. We already know that Cloud9 won, that they're going to be waiting for you in that next round, and we'll see who's going to get the advantage here in game number 1.
Now, TSM making the lower bracket run that they had just a year ago around this time. See if they can make that one happen yet again, as we've got a pretty tight game right now. You saw TSM playing bot lane pretty slowly. You could see SwordArt lasting the cannon as late as possible, despite the stack working at half health. Did not want to be under the opposing turret right away. We do have the first dragon of the game spawning. Good. Okay. Proper support bot lane play Share the CS on award. The sweeper always gets full gold. Donate the extra 10 gold over, and you're going to be fine. But now, here is Destiny and Xerxe duoing up, looking to control this one. Aggressive control ward means Spica now loses all of this vision. His ward is gone. His Raptors are gone. Sonic Wave's not going to land, and Xerxe gets to take about 75 gold away.
Already, the roaming is beginning. You see Destiny fresh off that recall, going in there, trying to get some wards down, help his team out. And a lot of this also seems to be coming from mid lane. Both junglers in their initial clears kind of ended up mid lane, helping fix the waves after both mid laners spent all their mana to get good recalls off. And I feel like that will be an important part, especially with Ryze, is unlocking mid lane to then go top and punish this extended Gnar who's going to be pushed up most of the laning phase. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's all connected, right? You know, the initial ward on the Raptors was actually from Insanity. That gives them vision that Spica is starting up the Raptors. They can move in on the invade. You know, they can try to have that sort of a play come through. So it will be interesting to see where the focus is going to be. It's a pretty slow first 6 minutes. No one really going for any sort of a moves just yet. But both teams actually have quite a lot of scaling, so there's not really that much pressure on either side to make early moves. It is actually really interesting to talk about in that way because there's pretty similar comps too. There's a lot of frontline potential, engage, front-to-back team fighting. I think the only wrinkle that one of these teams has is probably the Ryze as a bigger late-game side lane threat than a Gnar does become, who, you know, is always a bit of a threat in the side lane, but, you know, late game, if everyone's hitting their items, I'm a little bit more worried about the Ryze. Of course, you know, I think Ryze in the side lane is a concern, but on the other side, you have Orianna plus Rell, which is so nasty in team fights, right? Tough so engage. Exactly. it's kind of the trade-off there. It does have a little bit of a scuffle here around this Scuttle. Will be interesting to see if either team wants to start up the Dragon, but don't think it's going to happen.
That's going to be pretty much impossible. In front of Scuttle, there's no realistic way TSM can make it happen. There's always a chance for the Immortal sneak. Zhao's not the fastest clearer, and no Iron Spike Whip, just a pickaxe. It's going to have okay clear speed, but yeah, even with the vision, that's not going to go down just now. He's got camps to clear. You know, if you get spotted, you just lose your top jungle as soon as Spica pivots to that side. So chilling for now. Level 5 for the junglers. Level 6, though, already on the Zhao. Might mean a little something. Finally has Iron Spike Whip. That just helps so much with a champ like him to actually clear out things like Raptors and small Krugs. It saves you like 4 to 5 seconds per camp sometimes. That's a really, really big deal. So we can keep up pace. Spica, there we go. Finally pulls up the Gromp and is going through his jungle. Yeah, and interesting to know that PowerOfEvil actually moved over towards the blue, and Spica is the one who ended up taking it. PoE just takes a base, maybe making the decision that he doesn't actually need the extra mana early, so trying to get Spica to level 6, and he does get it off of the Gromp. So I think they were really just pushing for that spike, for that ability to hit 6 early, to be looking for a potential play here. I think it's going to be interesting to see where they try and focus down first, because it is such a slow game right now. You want that Lee Sin to get the level 6, get your ult off somewhere, and try and get an objective off of it. You see some pings going down from Immortals onto the Rift Herald. We'll see if they try and make an early roam up there. I think the decision to go Leona and Ezreal combined is obviously trying to unlock the Leona to find these scraps and these roam opportunities. It's just been a relatively quiet game compared to what we had seen so far in playoffs, where people are just super aggressive. And a lot of it is just about the vision, right? Being able to track these moves from both sides. You know, you have multiple pink wards here in this area from TSM, trying to cover any potential roam up from the Leona. Of course, there was Scuttle control. There's a ward in the pit as well from Immortals, trying to cover their own. Yeah, wards on top side as well. I mean, protecting PoE is a pretty huge part of their game plan, or at least it was more during the regular season. When they went that top side focused in the first series against CL, it was a bit of a surprise, because generally it's a lot about neutralizing opponents and getting into the mid to late game for TSM that I saw during the regular season, and Huni being the pressure point, but they would also make sure that PoE wasn't falling behind, and this is a little bit more towards what we saw during that portion of the season. And I think it talks about what Gilotto was talking about, you know, the ability of PowerOfEvil to really carry in the later stages, that he is that threat. TSM is trying to play towards that. And, you know, my read on their strategy coming into this game, number one, is they may just think that they're going to out-team fight Immortals later on. Yeah, for sure. And if you think that you are the better 5v5, the superior team-fighting team, well, there's no need to make any moves. You hunker down, you get your mid-laner farm, you set up with this hard engage combo that you have, Lee Sin, Gnar, Rell, plus Orianna, and then the follow-up there from Varus. Like, that is a tremendous amount of engage, a tremendous amount of burst. And if you think you can execute on that, no need to rush. And what's fun is, you know, it's one of the great things about having a sport that you play a lot of games of the season. You can do a lot of physical analysis. So shout out Tim from Oracle's Elixir. He has a stat for mid-late game rating, which is we take your gold lead and your dragon lead at 15 minutes, and then compare that to your actual win rate. TSM, and you know, if you win a lot more than your early game suggests, you have a mid-late rating. This is another point I'm going to make. TSM are the best mid-late rating in the LCS by like triple. Like, they win 16% more games than their gold leads suggest at 5 minutes from now. Like, they're really good at that. Now, that said, the 4th place team in that stat is Immortals. They actually both do pretty well later on compared to what their early game leads suggest.
And I think that's why the TL series was such a surprise for a lot of fans, because there were games that were pretty even heading into the mid to late game. They would have a 0 in some of these games, and then they would make mistakes around objective setups or lane assignments that would hurt them, but they're looking much cleaner today.
And I think part of that was just how well TL was responding to everything. You know, TL was playing an incredible game. I think, yes, TSM made mistakes, but to me, that series was more about how well TL played and less TSM really playing poorly. You know, Santorin was everywhere when they did try to look for plays. And, you know, in this series so far, they're up nearly 1,000 FTX gold. They got the early dragon. Their laning has just been superior.
And I think they've done a good job of doing what we talked about, neutralizing some of what Immortals is going to go for. Yeah, you guys get the Rift Herald. We're going to go bot lane. We're going to grab the Dragon. We're going to pressure you off and grab a bunch of plates that the Rift Herald will get you anyways. And so they were able to kind of trade that play that Xerxe was making into their own advantage.
Now, top laners farming back and forth. Revenge going for the rare choice of Fleet Footwork. Since you are in a ranged matchup, you really can't ever use Grasp, so still finds a sustained rune to use to keep up, but is, you know, slowly losing in farm. Huni, of course, a very lane-dominant player, and yeah, is, I would say, probably about half the gold right now is just in top lane CS.
Yep, top lane CS. He also got a plate, you know, from his early push. Obviously, they have the 3 plates on bot side, so that's a lot of their advantage.
The lead.
But you know, it's tough. If you get constantly shoved under the tower as Tahm Kench, you know, honestly, the limiting factor is more your mana pool oftentimes, because when there are awkward HP numbers on these minions, you've got to use your Q, you've got to use that spell to try to last hit, and it can get costly. It can kind of be taxing. This Gnar is just resourceless and constantly shoving.
And one thing I've seen from watching, you know, moderately high elo Tahm Kench in solo queue and whatnot, he's more of an early game champion. Like, his strengths are actually in having a very good laning phase and beating, you know, the Maokais and Dariuses and whatever in his lanes, because he's got really good early game damage and you can't push him out of lane. He then falls off because he's not the same kind of a tank as any other tank or as threatening as any other fighter. And so if you've kept him in lane and he's down CS, you've just, you know, kind of gotten rid of all the Tahm Kench advantages, and he's comparatively weaker to other picks.
I mean, they blinded him, so they kind of knew that they're opting into probably going to be a difficult matchup, and I think they did that for their bot lane, which was a little surprising. I think you even heard the analyst desk calling that out, and they haven't seen anything for it, because you were supposed to unlock the Ryze to help him out. I mean, Tahm Kench does have good gank set up with both his W and R now, and they just couldn't do anything yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fairly binary champion, right? It is a champion that you want to play with a lead, because generally you just have to outstat your opponents.
You run at them. Here we go.
There's not a lot of tricky plays you can look for here. Destiny could be in some trouble. Oh, nice kick.
Hop kick's going to land. Xerxe's going to try to get away. Has the ulti on. Meets not a lot of damage comes in. The attempted engage by SwordArt is not going to come in either. Do not burn his flash. It's the W. But now we got a Mega Gnar going to push in the Tahm Kench. Revenge gets his shield flashed away. Shark going to catch him. Now the health bars are low. Sonic Wave, Resident Strike, 1 for 1. First blood goes through to Insanity in a fight that TSM began.
Really back and forth fight there. Both top laners ending up in the middle of their enemy teams. Revenge does drop, but Spica had to give his own life up to find that kill. Now that does mean Spica's dead. Luckily the dragon was already taken. It's not quite up yet, so they have a little bit of time. Doesn't matter if the smite dropped, and both teams now going to reset a little bit.
Yeah, first blood going to the Immortals side. They're going to be feeling good about that. They want to be playing heavily through this Ryze, get them out to the side lane. That's one of their significant advantages, and they were able to get first blood here. You know, in TSM, they forced a lot of summoners, so we'll see if that ends up mattering. But the initial play is just in onto Xerxe. He takes the very end of the queue, ward hop, kicks him back. Xerxe ulting him into the tower was pretty impactful, because he takes the tower shot, gets rooted up by Insanity, so Spica's already very low here. Then, Huni going in on the play, yes, you scoop into the Tahm Kench, but you are just a less tanky version, and Spica, who was already low from the earlier play, has to go in here and give up his life to get the kill.
Yeah, nice shockwave by PoE to make sure it stays a 1-for-1, and a little dicey for Immortals to try and re-engage for more, but
it's an early game shockwave.
Yeah,
it did about 10% health.
Yeah, you got Merc Treads first as well to try and survive. You know, you're not really going to blow anyone up at this point.
I want to point out a really, really small thing for PoE, because I think every bad Orianna player would do this otherwise. He did not RW instantly. He R'd, waited for the CC to end, then hit the W. Mostly like guaranteed they're all in the middle, but also maximizes the duration you get the W slow. Just in case we're going to walk over the pool a little bit later. So just a small delay in distance is actually like always correct in Orianna. Cool to see.
I think the thing that's going to be important to track from here is now there are finally summoners down. I know a lot of the times in pro games, people get a little gun shy because it's like, oh, well, he can flash my Lee Sin insec or something, and I don't want to end up in the middle of the enemy team. Once you start blowing summoners, it becomes a lot easier to focus. Now, a lot of the summoners that are down are on the jungler and top laner for both teams, so maybe not the most impactful ones, but it is going to make it a little bit easier as this dragon fight comes up if there's going to be contest.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Xerxe is easier to catch out there, especially when you have Flash on the Rell. You know, that to me is one of the key playmakers, being able to deliver that ball. It is going to be a trade of Dragon for top turret, and I think that favors TSM pretty heavily. Huni was already ahead. He's going to get even more ahead now. The Shockwave just barely will catch, but it's just going to be a bit of a chip because Destiny's here. Xerxe's also here to cover.
Top turret still under fire. Obviously, Huni, very rich, has his mythic done already, brings in Spica for counter jungling, and I gotta say, it's such a great feeling when you can walk up and just, great, you know, Botly gets turret here as well. That's gonna feel really good, but you start poaching camps, and now the Bandage doesn't get any gold income on the other side. Krugs are almost the most valuable camp on the map, and yeah, cool, just, you know, denying Zhao he's behind, and hey, I'm already on mythic, ready to go on Lee Sin.
Looking pretty good for TSM. The ability to kind of neutralize that mid lane play. The Dragons, it's not a Dragon stacking game right now. We're not going to see Elder or Soul for quite a while. I think things are looking really good for them, actually, at this point in the game, given that with the Orianna, their team fighting will be a little bit better. I think they look great.
You can also see that Huni's actually getting ready for the potential side lane later against Ryze here. He's going towards Wit's End second, building some earlier MR here. That is going to be effective against Tahm Kench as well, but you know that you will be facing Insanity in the later stages. You grab yourself a Wit's End, you grab yourself some Merc Shreds, and you can be pretty well prepared for that. And something I know you're going to be happy to see, Phreak, is Raes here bought a Triforce. And you were on an absolute rampage earlier talking about how much better this is.
Divine Sunderer is heavily overrated on some champions. Those champions are Ezreal and Gangplank. So I'm glad we have the correct fill out of Raes.
Oh, you're toning it down a little bit for broadcast. It was spicier in the green room.
I mean, it's overrated. That's what I said. It's overrated on those champions.
Off with their heads.
He was like, they're brain dead building this crap.
That's not what I said. Either way. Correct build out of Raes, obviously. Being a marksman, can really use the attack speed. The mythic pass is pretty outstanding. And yeah, the actual proc damage is great. You're not going to use the heal much as a ranged champion, so we'll give him the most damage output overall. Not indexing towards tank stats, so that'll be good. He'll keep scaling up, obviously. As, yeah, TSM, 1700 FCX gold advantage. Yeah, you know we're not dragon stacking, but hey, looks like they're getting a second Herald with no contest really at all. P comes in to secure it just to make sure. Okay, great. Smite if you need it. Needs it. Cool. Great. And they're going to find another turret going down pretty soon.
Yeah, I mean, you can just move towards mid lane. I think that's likely what they're going to look for. The last outer tower here, TSM has all of theirs alive, and you also could try to play through Huni if you want to try to push a little bit deeper, drop that for the tier 2, get that additional gold here onto Huni, try to keep him ahead of the pace of the Ryze, because Insanity is farming really well.
Pretty good damage. Cleanse not going to matter because you've been chomped up, you've been spit out and lost. Found in the mid lane. Time to attack mid lane turret. They will not kill it in time to stop the TP. They'll get the, not even the auto attack to proc the W. Raes, I'm pretty sure he had Arcane Shift up, didn't even go for turret damage.
I think he was a little bit nervous about SwordArt potentially engaging. If PowerOfEvil arrives, you get comboed up there by the potential Shockwave coming through. Could be dangerous, but yeah, playing it pretty timid. And Lost getting caught out. And this was a problem for TSM against Team Liquid. Lost out of position a number of times, the Zig games in particular. You know, walking into the river there, his Varus game as well from a lead. It's something he has been criticized for, and one of the ways that Immortals could potentially have an in the series.
Definitely the most criticized player from the previous series, and you know, there were a lot of team issues, there were a lot of things to point out, but I think the community in particular has targeted Lost as someone that they want to see more out of. This is not exactly the ideal start. They did have a decent laning phase that they were able to take the turret down. You know, the two Oast boys squaring off against each other, coming out ahead a little bit during the laning phase, but that's not the part that people are necessarily the most critical of, to your point. It's these mid-game situations where now people are TPing mid to defend turrets as opposed to looking for proactive opportunities.
And I think it's always tough when you are the replacement for, you know, this iconic player like Doublelift, right? You
some big shoes.
You come in as the follow-up. You know, Doublelift always dominant in NA. You know, won so many titles here for TSM, and Lost has some very big shoes to fill.
Well, so far the better Kiwi. I mean, I'd still say it's Lost because he's winning. You know, he's got less CS, but he's got a turret, and I really, you know, it's so much CS to pick up for a turret kill. Yeah, it's fine.
I will say, based off that mid lane play, though, I do want to see Immortals play a little bit more aggressive. To your point about the timidness about whether you can get that proc off on the turret, at least it forces TSM to engage on you, then you can maybe make things happen. I feel like they need to get a little bit more aggressive here when they have these opportunities to push the lead as far as they can, because otherwise TSM is very happy to have stabilized from that play, and Huni has his own pressure. He will keep pushing down top lane, so if you don't get more out of that play, it's not even bad for TSM necessarily.
I mean, TSM now trying to play pretty heavily around Vision. It looks like they want to go for this next dragon, seeing that it is Ocean. Ocean's always valued incredibly highly by the pro teams. Huni able to take down that tower top, already has his wit's end. He's on 2 items, and it's so difficult to actually face check into this. Varus is poking you out. You have to engage through a potential Orianna ball, through a potential Rell engage. So TSM push out this one more wave, then they can go down into that bot side river. Huni's still chilling top, but does have to be worried about Realm Warp.
Okay, looking for the top side. Huni is Gnar, has absolutely no resources, but Destiny's not going to land the Zenith Blade. And Huni just walks away. Mid lane outer is gone.
Oh, it's a disaster for Immortals. They wanted to sack the dragon and go, okay, we'll make a play on the flip side of the map. But TSM was in range because they were already pressuring down mid lane. So they just kind of followed that roam and give Huni his alley to escape.
Yeah, I mean, they just didn't have full vision, so you're kind of guessing exactly where to Realm Warp. Do you Realm Warp to the left? Do you Realm Warp to the right? Huni made the correct choice, but it was a bit of an obvious play because when you're both contesting mid, they don't walk towards bottom river where you have vision. Where are they going to go? Well, of course, they're moving up towards topside, and now Revenge going to get wrapped around here.
He's going to W away, though. Honestly gets to walk. There are not a lot of ways to stop Tahm Kench W. You've got, SwordArt and Lost and PowerOfEvil's ult and Spica's ult. And if he's Gnar, okay, listen, every champion, I understand that, but they're mostly ultimates, okay? They're ultimates, or they require being in Gnar, so it's not the most reliable. In this case, he was Gnar. Literally couldn't stop him. I wasn't wrong.
I mean, TSM's just happy to play the pressure game at this point. You saw how hard it was for them to walk in and contest that dragon. Varus and Orianna poke, chunking them out. And I think almost all this has to come down to the better vision control on the side of TSM. Vision score is a little bit of a sus stat. You have to be careful when you use it. But just if you look on the side of TSM, almost all of their members are pretty heavily outpacing their opponents in vision score. They've done such a good job of getting a lot of wards down in the river to make sure it's hard for Immortals to go for plays.
This could look really good. Raes is going to be in range with the red buff. Mistimes it, but it's not going to really matter, Huni. Got a Gnar into the wall, but there's no way through it. Shutdown goes through. Kill credits. Going the way of Immortals, but TSM still playing the map better.
Yeah, that's an overextension there from Huni, and they're going to get the farm shutdown. That's actually a pretty big deal. He had no kills, but he was so far up in CS. You do get the shutdown. They get some damage down on mid, and you're going to get a little bit of map control back here. Revenge finally going to be able to push out the wave. Immortals pushing up here mid, trying to grab their tower and looking for SwordArt.
Oh, his W, has to flash get away. True Shot Barrage will not get a kill. SwordArt also jukes the correct direction, but this might be enough to kill the turret. Are they going to be afraid?
Yeah.
Raes has flash. He's so gun-shy. Lost ult is down. Pee-wee wasn't in range. SwordArt was flashless. That turret would be dead if Raes just played up for 2 auto attacks at any point in any of these sieges.
Yeah, I mean, it's scary. It's a big playoff series. I understand the pressure, but you have to try and find these opportunities. He did a good job sneaking.
To be fair, this one I think was more defensible.
Yeah.
He's down to about 30%. I don't know if Varus had W, but a WQ maybe actually kills you. So I get it. The previous one mid lane, I do think he was playing a little bit shy. And that's something that you do see in playoffs more often than in regular season, right? Players feel the pressure of this additional importance on this series, of the fact that if they lose here, their year is over. And sometimes that can cause you to play a little bit more defensively than is intelligent. And that's tough when you're playing on a champion like Ezreal, who needs to get the maximum, who needs to be baiting out spells, forcing out cooldowns by playing right on that line. And also, if you're going to go Trinity Force, you want to get some use out of that attack speed.
That's true.
I do want to give him also a little bit of the positive credit for making that play on the bot side. He found the area where they knew Spica had put a deep ward over the wall. He found the path through, not in vision, to get the kill onto Huni to allow a potential push down the mid lane in a 4v5 situation. So, you can take the good and the bad sometimes, the players.
Attempt on a SwordArt not going to land. Spica gets most of the Raptors yet again. Thank you for the roughly 70 gold taken away, as 8 is only grabbed back for Xerxe, and we now have Baron looking like important. Going to be a melee range stun. Spica face checks, but he knows SwordArt was around him, had a stun if he needed it, had a safeguard target available, and able to do so pretty safely.
I gotta say, I'm pretty surprised that Huni actually went tabbies this game instead of Markz. I think with Leona as well as Ryze, there's so much lockdown there, and he's clearly wanting to play mostly through sides. He's built with the wit's end pretty heavily for sides, so is a little bit surprising. Of course, there is some auto attack damage there from Ezreal, from Xin, but I feel like they're not the main threats in this game. To me, it's more concerning if you get locked down and can't Mega.
Big fight onto Huni, gonna get Gnar into the bottom side. Knockup coming through for Tahm Kench, but not a ton being done. Zhao's already gone. 1 for 0. Thank you, Huni, for the kill. Running away is the opposing support. Shaka gonna find Raes, but he's able to jump over the wall to stay alive. PowerOfEvil, he's one more spell to get that kill. Insanity trades back Huni, and they are going for the tower dive, but the spells finally land. Onto the turret goes Spica, takes down the opposing AD carry. Damage output's gonna find a support, but now it is just Revenge left alone. He will get none for himself. TSM take that fight 4-2.
4-2 in TSM's favor. A very split fight because Insanity and Revenge actually tried to hop onto Lost at the very beginning of that. Nice play by Lost to stay alive and kite that out and allow Spica to chase down the weak backline of Immortals.
Yeah, that was really well played from TSM overall. I mean, Spica going very deep there to finish off kills.
Feeling himself.
Yeah, I mean, as rightly he should. He has a ton of farm. He's got some kills under his belt. He is really strong at this point in the game. When you're playing a champion like Lee Sin, you've got to look for those plays. You've got to go for those aggressive moves. And Huni and PowerOfEvil set him up well. Both of them had solid ultimates in the fight. And we'll see what TSM can get for this. The Dragon up here in 10.
Yeah, a little bit faster of a reset for Immortals here. They were able to get a little bit of vision, but still Insanity, respawning, coming out of the base. They'll be a little slow to this Dragon. Here's the interesting part about this fight where they catch Huni out. There's a lot of people jumping on top of him. I thought Revenge was going to go into the middle of this kind of combination of SwordArt and Huni, but he actually tries to get onto Lost here. Does get the knockup, but then spends the rest of the fight trying to play footsies around blue buff. Huni kites back, and it leads to a split fight where Insanity and Revenge are on this half of the map, and then you see on the top side, Spica is just crushing it with PoE.
Yeah, and part of the problem is it's fine to dive deep there as Revenge, but if you do not have some sort of follow-up, if you do not have the Ryze or someone in that backline with you, you're not really going to be able to kill Varus off very quickly yourself. So Lost kites it out, he cleanse flashes over the wall, and on the other side, Orianna, Lee Sin, as well as the Gnar really do have that damage to get it done, and they are taking down members left, right, and center. And Huni now, he's going to crack this inhib tower.
Huni is just built to be an incredible split pusher. This has been his strength, I think, forever. I think back to making World Finals with SKT. He had a lot of those Jace games where he's going to have 4 in CS in 35 minutes, and he's going to be side lane forever. And if you don't side lane well against him, sorry, he's up ADCS, and he's killing your entire base. He's doing it again still. Like, the man, I feel like, for the most part, has never dropped that kind of skill set and is a big part of why TSM are ahead. He's probably half their lead still.
I mean, he's massively up right now as far as the gold goes. He's up over 3,000 gold individually, so
he's still 2/3.
Pretty crazy at this point in the game. 3 full items completed. He is playing very, very dominantly. They're at soul point. They're winning side lanes. Immortals needs to force something, or they are just going to bleed out this game because they're playing fairly passively. TSM is doing a great job dictating the pace of the game. They're the ones controlling vision around Dragon. They're always the ones first to set up. And now finally Insanity is getting out to the side lane and answering the Gnar because you need to make some sort of play around that. Clearly Tahm Kench cannot do anything against Gnar at this point in the game.
The only difficult part is they have no teleports. They had to use them in these awkward situations about covering plays and trying to get involved. So right now, yeah, you can commit the Ryze down to deal with the Gnar, but in the entire time, you have to be worried what's going to happen with your 4-man core because the Gnar can join in at any time and make it a 5v4.
All right, time to jump away. Out of range of most of the engaged tools. Oh, okay, slows down SwordArt. Speaking to kick him in, and now the reinforcements need to arrive. Teleport come in for even more. Should be very tanky. These thick skin a little bit late. Revenge loses it instantly to SwordArt's Q and just goes down 1-0.
Exactly what I was just saying. You have the Gnar TP in from the flip side of the play. All Ryze can do is push down and get some turrets in the bot side. Now they're going to try and convert it into Baron. Exactly.
Okay, Ryze, the bottom lane, does have Center Teleport up right now. True Shot Barrage sees this happening, but can they win a 4v5? They have not called the TP just yet, and they realistically can't do this very easily. No Blast Plant, so it requires Xerxe, WE, and then maybe flash away. Look at the bottom turret, and Xerxe can basically make this a coin flip. But here goes Gnar, puts the ulti in, all the season comes across, but Baron is not in his might range just yet. Finally will get taken, well done, and now Xerxe forced to run away. Can he get chase down? House is gonna land, somebody here for the move speed flash to stay alive. Baron has been picked up, bot lane tier 2 is claimed, Raes jumps in, and it's flung back. The time he flips it in is the time he gets flipped across to the TSM and gets taken down. A quick 2-0 team fight to TSM.
And TSM have waves mid and top. Insanity got 2 towers bot, but they lose Baron. They're going to lose so many towers here. And that could very well spell the end of it for Immortals. This gold lead is about to explode here. They're pushing in topside. They do get a kill, though.
Okay, Insanity finds one. The respawn's coming in still 15 seconds, but can they win this fight anyway? The TP finally finishes, though, for Orianna. This is a 3v4. Revenge flashing to stay away from Shockwave, but now Huni is back in. Gnar gonna find the double stun, gonna find the shutdowns. A killing spree for the Gnar. Tahm Kench can run for his life. The flag comes out. Spica's like, you might as well surrender.
TSM have no chill. They grab the Baron. They go instantly into pushing. They don't know what resetting is. They're going to grab top inhibitor off the kills that they were able to find while Immortals was trying to punish them for never backing.
We'll see if Immortals wants to go for some sort of a long chase. This doesn't look like it's in the cards. The TP is up for Insanity, but he's not going to respawn for way too long. So they will be resetting here with so much gold. Huni has 3,200 gold to spend, 1,800 on jungle and mid, 3,000 available as well for their bot laner. So they have over 10K basically to spend at this point. And this is just really well executed by TSM. They got the initial pick, then no chance of a 50-50 here. Huni megas out, goes over the wall. The CC between him and SwordArt is more than enough to keep Xerxe out.
And this is where Immortals start to feel a little desperate. They know some people are probably still in the pit, so once Raes starts landing this poke, he's like, well, maybe I can get a little bit more aggressive. But SwordArt instantly sees that, instantly jumps forward, knows he has the backup to punish. They find a couple more kills, and then at this point, Immortals are scrambling to try and stem the bleeding. They're like, all right, well, maybe we can find some other people, but TSM just keep the pressure up.
Here we go, Baron alive in 30 seconds. Sorry, Dragon gonna be soul for TSM. They get it. Xerxe already gone, 1 for nothing. Ult's gonna land. This is dangerous for the Ezreal. Stopwatch used for Lost, but Destiny might be able to lock him down, finds a bit of damage. Shockwave buys the time, and 3 kills in for TSM. Nowhere to go but away. Raes has to run. Revenge will do it again as well. Dragon's up in 8 seconds, but TSM say we'd rather kill the base. They won't even leave one back. They're gonna go for the kills instead. Raes will be knocked down. Huni's on a rampage, 13-6 the scoreline, and TSM want the base.
Looking a little dicey there for Lost, but he's able to stay alive. The rest of TSM coming in to save his life, and now they're able to push down the mid lane. They're pinging the turrets. They definitely want to try and end this game. They should be able to do it. 30 seconds until Raes is back up.
2 respawns coming in 5 seconds, though. Maybe somehow a 3v5 defense. Revenge, the thick skin comes on, gets stunned, gets killed, and it's time to knock down the turrets as well. Xerxe and Destiny left alone. Gnar back up, finds the jungler. Damage gonna come across well. A double kill for the mid laner as PowerOfEvil grabs his 4th kill of the game. And now on to the final Nexus turret. The stopwatch keeps Destiny alive for a few more moments. A reasonably close early game, but now TSM just playing with their food. A Shockwave gets yet another, and the Nexus falls at 32 minutes.
TSM looking great in game number 1. They did go blue side here against the Immortals, but it ended up being top diff all the same. The blind pick Tahm Kench here has worked out for Revenge in the past. He has had some incredible games on it, but Huni with the Gnar, more than equal to the task, got very ahead early, constantly shoving. And I think the Wits End was really, really smart here, just indexing into his side lane strength when he was already playing from ahead. I mean, he just was constantly pressuring Immortals, constantly extending the gold lead for TSM. And I mean, they looked fully in control start to finish.
I think control was the big word for me. The vision control that they had, the way that Spica was able to make sure the Ryze Zing could never make anything happen throughout the entire early game, which isolates that counter pick Gnar to just be able to pressure 24/7 the entire game. I think Huni was the one who got a lot of the gold lead, but it was a lot of the team setting him up to be able to just push as much as he wanted.
And he got to play just 100-0, right? Just pushing at all times, always play to maximize his income, push his leads individually. He was the highest level champion in the game above his teammates and obviously his opponents as well. Every time we actually checked in and looked, he was over half of his team's gold lead just on his 1v1. And yeah, Tahm Kench can be useful with a gold deficit. We saw him force some flashes, but like Huni's unkillable outside of 1v3s, and he took, I want to say, 4 or 5 turrets just by himself. Like, he just was all the map pressure. That's TSM was like, well, we could just wave throw an Ori Varus. That's fine. We'll show up for team fights. No big deal. It was great.
I mean, it just felt like TSM was so far in their comfort zone the entire game, right? From picks to the pace of the game to who was choosing the fights to who was advancing the state of the game. They had this incredible team fight combo. They were being allowed to scale pretty much for free towards this Rell Orianna. They're winning side lane. There didn't really feel like any sort of point of pressure for Immortals. You know, they drafted for this Ezreal to be able to play 1v2 bot. Orianna's supposed to roam heavily, but they didn't have enough control to actually keep the river clear of vision. So every time he moved from bot lane, he was marked, it was answered. It just felt like Immortals have got to play with more aggression, have got to take some bigger swings here, because clearly that style of game goes heavily towards TSM.
I think we're talking about taking bigger risks. It includes the draft, not just in-game where we're talking about, oh, should you have walked up and hit the turret or whatnot, but you're on red side. Like, if you're not getting something with counter picks, and 5th pick Ezreal counter pick is not it, you know, that's not going to be a pressure point for you, then you didn't really walk away with anything. And so I think that's one of the big areas. I assume they'll go blue side, but
give me the Draven.
Yeah, give me some aggressive stuff.
Absolutely. Okay, so game 1 is